Welcome to Real Health with me, Karl Henry. Folks, in what ways do we limit ourselves? How is it holding us back? In his new book, I Am, I Can, I Will, performance coach and best-selling author Gerry Hussey explains how you can silence your inner critic and reclaim your confidence. On the back of the book, he says, the groundbreaking book gives you the tools to transform your life. I Am, become aware of the power of your inner story and the narratives and the words that are holding you back. I Can, you rewrite your story, reconnect with your dreams, and embrace the confidence to make them happen. And I Will, build practices and habits to help you feel empowered and stay focused. We have a lot to cover in a very short space of time. Gerry, welcome back. How are you?
Thanks, Karl. And I bet you were trying to silence your inner critic as you sat here twiddling your thumbs because I was late.
That's all right. Blame the dart, Gerry. Blame the dart.
Blame the dart, yeah.
We've come a long way from the very first time you and I met and you and I chatted, where there was no book. And now this is number three. This is three, isn't it? Yeah.
There was no book, there was no events, there was no retreat. And I've said it live in the concert hall. Karl, you were the catalyst. I think you were the first people to bring me on a podcast. And with the courage to just allow me to speak. And I know I said some things at the time that people might have thought was a bit mad, but science is catching us up. And so, yeah, since the first time we met, everything's changed. I have 2 kids now.
I know.
Books, but it's great to be back because you were the catalyst. You were the person that took a chance on me.
And like, this book, so when you get into multiple books, it's always fascinating. I'm always intrigued by what was the trigger, because, you know, for people who don't know, when you to try to get a book deal, you got to go in and sell it to a publisher. So there's got to be a really important trigger. So what was the trigger behind this one? The
trigger for this, myself and my dad were on the train down to Cork one day. We got chatting to a lady beside us. She happened to have read my books. She was giving me glowing comments about them, and I was sucking it all up. And then the man beside her, who was no relation, never met her before that, said, I've actually read your books as well. And I said, oh, and how did you find them? Waiting for another barrage of lovely compliments. And he said, to be honest, I got nothing from them. I said, really? And now my own little inner voice was being challenged. I said, why? He said, I felt they were too dense, they were too packed, there was too much in them. And after I finished, I didn't know where to start. And I listened, and as we were going through the barriers in Cork to go out, he just said, would you ever think of just thinking about what one thing, if somebody could only change one thing, what one thing would make the biggest difference? So I thought about all my books. I talked about the gut brain axis and neuroplasticity and chemistry and nervous system. And I thought it was a great question. And I thought about it for about 2 months. And I said, the one thing that has the greatest impact on our health, our well-being, our daily life is actually our inner voice. So I took his number at the time. I rang him up 2 months later. I said, I'm going to write a book about our inner voice, where it comes from, what forms it, and how it can hold us back, whether it's a voice of, that empowers us or disempowers us. Is it a voice of pain or a voice of power? And I'm going to show people how they can transform their inner voice. And he said, if you write that book, I'll buy it. So this book is very different. It's a very different style of book. It's sharper. It's punchier.
There's a lot of workbooks in it, worksheets in it. In terms of, you're really trying to bring the person to the book in terms of work with me through it and take yourself through it. And let's start with the A method. Let's begin there. There's lots of stuff to cover, but let's start there.
So the A method for me is, a lot of us get caught on any given moment. Maybe you're dropping your kids off and you get to work and suddenly you get a call saying, you're about to go into the biggest business meeting in your life, and you get a phone call saying your kids are after falling from a tree, breaking their hand, go to the hospital. It could be that. It could be at any given moment, something can happen that is so far out of what we expected, our nervous system, our stories, we begin to panic. What I've trained athletes to do is in those moments, not panic. And the A method is about how do I quickly get from a state of panic, this can't happen, why me, to a state of this has happened, and now I have a choice. The choice is how I choose to respond, and in this moment, what would the greatest choice be? So it's a very simple, powerful tool to allow people to navigate all those moments that happen on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, where at times we can spend so much time saying, why me, why this, why now, why, resisting, angry, frustrated. This allows you to accept the situation exactly as it is, acknowledge that you have a choice, and act on a powerful choice.
So it's owning it. It's taking ownership of it and then deciding, okay, what am I going to do now? as opposed to dwelling on it.
Yeah, so a lot of the book is based, Karl, on this idea that, you know, life can be painful. So I'm not in the fake positivity business. People who know my work know, you know, I don't shy away from the difficult topics. So there is pain in life, but pain and suffering are different. So every morning we wake up, a lot of us, because the brain has a negative bias, the brain wants to think about a threat. It wants to think about our trauma. It wants to think about our pain. It wants to think about what we don't have. It wants to think about everybody that annoys us. We can lose so much time, so much energy, so much of our life on stuff that doesn't serve us, doesn't empower us. So this book is asking, when you listen to your inner story, when you listen to the way you're thinking, when you listen to what you give your energy to, is it your painful stuff or your powerful stuff? And what I've done with athletes over the years is allow them to develop a very simple method where they can switch into the power all the time. So every morning we wake up, we have two gifts beside our bed, a chance and a choice. A chance to start again, a chance to fall in love, a chance to go after our dreams, a chance to forgive, a chance to let go, and a choice whether we do that or not. When I work with a lot of people, when I really dig down to their emotions and their stories, they're still telling their story of, I can't and I shouldn't, and it's hard to find love and it's hard to make money and the world is a bad place and I don't deserve that. They're beating themselves up with a story, and your story, which the book goes on to explore, your inner voice is actually the spokesperson of your subconscious program. So when you now begin to listen to the habits and patterns of your inner voice, now you begin to recognize your deepest subconscious programs. And as we know, we've chatted about this before, Karl, our life can't be bigger, happier or different than our subconscious programs.
And that's very much that idea that we're telling ourselves either something that's empowering or disempowering, isn't it? And it starts there.
It is, and it's the can't. I can't do that. Now is not the right time. And that's because, as I said, the brain has a negative bias. So we spend a lot of our time up on our heads. We're trying to wait for the perfect moment, wait for the perfect thing. And a lot of the big moments in our life are the highly emotive moments. And a lot of us have experienced moments of fear or shame or guilt or pain. The problem with that is that's the emotion that the story gets attached to. And then our stories are linked to try avoid the pain. So for the rest of our life, it'll be play small, play safe, don't take the chance, don't go after it, don't take the risk. And what the book says is the greatest risk we take in life is not risking anything. The greatest tragedy of life is not death. The greatest tragedy of life is arriving at the end and realizing we never lived. So if we don't examine our stories are usually linked to fear, to shame, to guilt, to self-preservation, to hiding. And we hide, we play small, we shrink our entire life only to arrive at the end of realizing we never took a chance of living.
And how do we break out of that then? How do we break that narrative, of the negative narrative that so many of us suffer from?
One is firstly to recognize awareness is key to everything. So at first, we become so unconscious of our inner story. Then secondly, we believe it. So we tell ourselves a story. I can't, I'm not good at this, I'm not good at maths, that doesn't work out, it's hard to fall in love, it's hard to have money, it's hard to buy a house. We never really check that story. Where does that story come from? And sometimes the story is self-created, and sometimes the story was given to us by a teacher or a parent. So the question I ask a lot of my clients is, where did you first hear that story? And who's the only person telling you that story now? So a lot of people say, well, it's very hard to buy a house until you talk to 10 people that have bought a house. It's very hard to be a professional soccer player until you talk to 50 people that have become it.
So is that very much that idea of surrounding yourself, of the fly with the eagles if you want to be an eagle, that kind of thing?
That's exactly it.
You want to buy a house, surround yourself with people who've bought houses, because chances are some of that will rub off on you and you'll
There's a great story in there, and it's from a guide that I've climbed the Alps with and I'm going back again this year with, and it terrifies the day because I'm afraid of heights. And he brings us to places I never imagined I could. And he talks about getting over your inner story. And he said this line, it's in the book: shitty people with shitty beliefs tell shitty stories to justify their shitty actions. So a lot of people, there's a great story in there about, I went down to the 40-foot one day to do a jump, and there was a guy up there, he clearly had got up and bottled it, but he didn't want to say I've bottled it. So he kept telling people the water's too low, the tide's not high enough, watch that rock. And he convinced everybody that the water's too low. Because I go there every day, I was looking and I said, there's no truth in the story. So I jumped off the rock, in, no problem. So that's groupthink. So some people tell shitty stories, and what they're trying to do is they're trying to prevent everybody else from doing the thing they can't.
Yes.
So I think what you got to do is ask yourself, who am I surrounding myself with? I've always said, don't surround yourself with people who tolerate your bullshit and your excuses. Surround yourself with people that will look you in the eye and love you enough to say, tell yourself a better story. Because sometimes our stories are self-sabotage mechanisms or self-defense mechanisms. So that guy that morning, the only thing that was too shallow wasn't the water. What was too shallow was his self-belief. But he didn't want to tell that story. So most people will tell a story that justifies their anger, that justifies their laziness, that justifies their decisions. So the stories become creations of our ego.
In the I will part, you talk about building habits then. Where do we start with that?
For me, the habit is, it can be as simple as waking up in the morning and just being still for 3 or 4 minutes. Everything you do is a habit.
Oh my God, that's the dream.
Yeah, I know. Everything we do is a habit. So you wake up in the morning, you go straight onto your phone, that's a habit. You wake up in the morning, you think about the meeting you don't like, that's a habit. So we have to think about what are our current habits, and are those habits empowering us, healing us, or are they disempowering us and hurting us? So little things for me is like when I brush my teeth in the morning, what am I thinking to myself as I brush my teeth? Because I'm going to brush my teeth anyway. So I attach a new habit to the old habit. When I have a shower, one time ago I'd been in the shower and I was thinking about all the stressful things. Now when I'm in the shower, I'm singing a song. So it's about looking at the things that I give time to every day and saying, right, how do I build something more into that? Whether it's an affirmation, whether it's a breathing routine. For me, a little exercise is so key in the morning to move the body, open the mind, move emotion. So it's trying to set up simple habits that we do every day that allow you to get out of the noise of the world, out of the noise of other people, out of the phone, out of Instagram, and listen to your own voice. Listen to your soul. In the book, I talk about 2 inner voices. One is the chatterbox, which is the madness of the ego, or the madness of the brain, which is usually fear, comparison, judgment based. But then we have a deeper voice, which is the voice of the soul. It's our truest wisdom. And if we sat for 5 minutes every morning and just asked ourselves an honest question, do I really love my job? Am I really following my dreams?
These are big. I've seen you present this. These are big questions.
They're not big questions. Or people said they're uncomfortable questions.
They're
it's
uncomfortable
the answers.
questions.
It's the answer that's uncomfortable. The question is just a question. And I think part of the reason that we live at such a pace and we distract ourselves and we're constantly full of noise is we're afraid of facing the truth. This book is about what is your truth, because we get one crack at this. It's not a dress rehearsal. We don't know when we're going to be called to step off the stage of life. And this book is asking you, are you really willing to dare take a chance at living life? Stop being the victim. We talk about in life, you either have a story that inspires victory or victimhood. Are you willing to stop blaming other people for 15 minutes? Are you willing to turn off the external noise? Are you willing to ask yourself a question? Are you willing to dare to walk through a door that might just grant you incredible freedom?
But that door comes for people listening, and I know I can see what they're saying to their earphones as they speak. Like, oh yeah, that's very easy for him to say. But I'm stuck in a job that I have to pay the mortgage, or I'm stuck in whatever. You know, that sense of I'm stuck because.
Well, that's the I am statement. I am stuck. So you repeat that every morning. I'm stuck. I'm stuck. I'm stuck is very close to I am a victim. And you're talking to a kid, Karl, as you know, who I had 2 suicide attempts before I was 14. I had a terrible stammer growing up. My biggest fear on any given day was that somebody would ask me to speak. I had absolutely no confidence. I failed my junior cert. Don't tell me change is impossible. But you got to do the work. And it's courageous, brave work. It's day by day. People always say, Gerry, this isn't easy. I know it's not easy. The easy life is the life unlived. The life of victimhood, the life of frustration, the life of blaming other people, the life of comparison.
Comparison is a big one now. Let's stay on that for a second. Because the world that we live in, and I'm absolutely guilty of this, and getting better at it actually, but that comparative thing is very powerful. It's It's like the trigger to a bomb, really, isn't it? It's like social media, or is a big reason for that. Or they have that, or I don't have that, or whatever. That's a huge modern day problem when it comes to mental health and people, achieving things.
I think the world is set up, Karl, for not enoughness, and most of us live very ordinary lives, and most of us it's very ordinary. But what is set up is people show you their extraordinary moments. And if you see enough of those in concession, you begin to think that, that this is their life. The best way I've heard of this is an actor once said to me, everyone watches the movie and says, oh, I'd love to be a Hollywood actor. Being a Hollywood actor is the most boring thing you could be, because a movie's shot in bits and pieces and bits and pieces, and it's waiting and it's cold. So he said, most people look at the movie, they edited a movie of somebody else's life, but they have to act in their own life. So most movie actors don't even watch the premieres because it doesn't bear any resemblance to the real experience of making the movie. So the real experience of making a movie is a lot of waiting, a lot of patience, a lot of outtakes, a lot of failures, a lot of cold, a lot of learning, that's the experience of making a movie. What you see is the edited version, and that has no resonance with the actors. So what we see on Instagram is the edited extraordinary moments, but their life, I promise you, doesn't feel like to them what they're trying to make you believe. Their life feels like your life. And I remember once when working with a model, and she'd come to this realization: I'm not interested in this anymore, because what are we selling? We're selling a false prophecy to people. And I said, I suppose, like, most people don't look like models. And she said, Gerry, the models don't look like the models. When you see them in real life, they're not like that. So we live in a superimposed, everything's highly edited, highly filtered, highly curated. It is a fake version of their life.
But it still gets to you. That happened to me yesterday. I was flicking through Instagram. I was on the train on the way up, and there was some person I'd never heard of in a Mercedes garage buying a G-Wagon. Now, I love cars. They're one of my weaknesses in life. And it really, for the sake of about 20 minutes, it really upset me that this punter, who I'd never heard of, and she was like American, she was 24, 25, in the dealership. The G-Wagon's $300-400 grand. And I was like, and she's a fitness influencer. And I was like, how does that? And it really annoyed me. It got into me for about 20 minutes, and then I parked it. But like that, I'm rational. I consider myself quite intelligent. I've read the book, and I've interviewed people like you for a long, long time. Yeah. So I get what's, in my head, I know what's going on, and I know exactly what's. But it really annoyed me for about 20 minutes. I was like, how haven't I got one of them? Or how, you know what I mean? It's fascinating.
The gift, Karl, is it annoyed you for 20 minutes, and then you moved on. Like, some people could stay in that state for hours, weeks, months, years. And I think we all get angry. I often look at your Instagram, Karl. This is truth. I said, look at Karl. Jeez, I wish I moved out like he did. He always seems to be calm. He always seems to be happy. And particularly,
you don't live with me, so.
Particularly on the days where my diary is rammed packed. I'm looking at you and say, look at Karl. I bet you his diary is smooth every day.
What do you do there? You're the man telling us.
So I go back to my choice. Okay. So I go back and say, right, you have a choice. Karl made a choice to move. You're not making that choice. Why? And then I kind of think, when I'm with you, you're honest enough to tell me the days you're just as busy as me, and so I'm just reminded.
Okay.
That everyone's just human.
Okay, so you're mature enough to take a step back.
Exactly. And I think everyone,
hold on a second here now.
And in this book, we talk, everyone has a right to feel angry, to be bitter, to be judgmental. Everybody has a right to feel every emotion.
Yeah.
The only thing is, how long are you willing to spend in that? So like you said, I was really, annoyed or jealous for 20 minutes. But that's okay. It's only 20 minutes. So that's called the emotional refractory phase. Okay. If you can feel or experience an unhelpful thought, an unhelpful story, or an unhelpful emotion, and in 15, 20 minutes later, you have the tools to work through it, then that's okay. So for me, that's what confidence is. Confidence isn't that I don't feel fear or I don't feel anger. Confidence is that I have the tools and the awareness that when I do get sidetracked, I can quickly come on track.
Or I saw somebody on, and this really bothered me because I was nearly going to drive over. It was a rational thing. So online fitness courses. It was an online. He was training PTs up, this guy, and he didn't live too far from where I live, and there was only one day in person. The rest was virtual. And I was like, and in over like 10 weeks or 12 weeks, I was like, you can't be a PT for about 8 or 9 hours. It really bothered me. I don't know the person. I've never met him. I have no sense of whatever about him because I have no connection to him. Yeah. But it took me a good 7 or to get over that and not get in the car and drive over and have a chat with him in terms of, because this is just nonsense. You can't do that. Anyway, but the skill set. So your point is the skill set is there that you step back from it and you say, okay, you acknowledge it, and then you try and be mature about it and say, why am I actually annoyed about it? And then it actually was because I thought he was doing something that potentially I'd wanted to do, and that was the real root of it.
That's the root. I think it's to get to the root cause. So when someone makes you angry, don't say, Karl made me angry, or Karl's success, or Karl's move made me angry. Ask yourself, what in that has triggered the anger in me? So when somebody makes you angry, it's you holding the anger. You're the one judging. You're the one comparison, which is okay. But you need to ask yourself, what in me has been triggered? And maybe it's, I should have followed my dreams. Now that's a great message. Or I should have acted on that idea. Well, then go act on it then. So for me, it's get into the unhelpful emotion, but recognize it quickly. Then ask, what in me has that triggered? What do I need to address? And this is where the book talks about listen to the wisdom of the soul. And then I ask myself, so I often look at people and say, God, they only started in this business a year ago, and now they've 1,000,000 followers. But then I look at what they're saying, I look at what they're selling, I'm like, they're Magnolia, they never challenged. No, that's not me. So stay in your own lane. One of the things I ask people is, ask yourself, what's the business you're in? If you're in the business of making money fast, that's one business. If you're in the business of making followers and kind of promoting any type of brand, then do that. If you're in the business of truth and making a difference, then you have to be prepared to challenge people at times. Your growth will be a bit smaller because not everyone's going to love you. You're going to get criticism because when you challenge people, so that's knowing what business I'm in. And that's where consistency is key. So as long as I followed you, Karl, you've been very consistent with your message. Where I see other people and they're just chopping and changing all the time because the business they're in is look good, gain followers, cash in. And if that's the business you're in and you're happy with that, then that's okay. But you have to go back to what would really nourish my soul. What am I really proud of? And I think anybody, particularly if you're an entrepreneur setting up a business today, it's a real great question. What business am I really in? If you're in the truth business, if you're in the excellence business, then you're not going to sell courses that just don't work. You're not going to cash in on products that you can't stand over. But you're in a far better business. So that takes away comparison. It is, what is my life about? What is my business about? What makes me proud? No two people are the same. No two businesses should be the same. Nobody's on the same journey. And then a final question I ask myself when I look at somebody and they have something that I don't have, I ask myself, what in my life would I give up to have that? Would I give up my 2 healthy kids? I don't think so. Would I give up my house or my wife or my health? No. So it goes back to refocusing on what you don't have to what I do have. And I know that things like I could make more money, I could be more busy, but I'd have to give up something. So I know my time with my young kids, my time with my wife, my downtime is so important to me that I look at these other people and I'm like, part of me might like that, but what I'd have to give up to get there, no, thank you.
Mature reflection, I think, summarises our chat. As ever, we could chat for hours. So you're gonna have to come back in when you get your book tour out of the way. Come back into me, and we'll have we'll continue the chat. I will Reclaim Your Confidence and Power by Gerry Hussey, #1 best-selling author, is in bookstores nationwide. Gerry, as ever, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you, Karl, and sorry for being late.
You're A-okay, folks. I really hope you enjoyed today's episode of Real Health with me, Karl Henry. As ever, you know where we are at Karl Henry PT on Instagram. Don't forget to rate and review. It's really important for us in terms of our Apple Podcasts and our Spotify rankings. And if you have any questions, realhealth@independent.ie, or you can find us on the Irish Independent website. Slán go fóill. We'll see you next week.